1 second. And I'm ready.
Okay, go ahead.
Hello, everyone. This is the third episode of the Spooky Second Podcast, Season 3, hosted by the Pioneer Paranormal Society. This week, we're joined with three members from the club. Hosting this episode, we have JD, the club's current promotions director, Bella, and me, Paul. Our guest this week is Steve Dills. Steve is the director of the Transcend Paranormal Group and historian for the Ghost Finders team. The Ghost Finders team runs an episode documentary series that streams on Paraflix Plus streaming service. We will be talking about both his groups and his paranormal experiences. So, well, to start off, would you like to introduce yourself, Steve, and
God,
tell
I
us a
feel like
little about what you do?
you did it. Like I'm good now.
All right, there
We're
we go.
good.
Episode over.
uh, no, so I'm Steve. I've been investigating the paranormal for I don't know, well over a decade at this point. Um, like you said, I started off just in Transcend Paranormal, my own team, and we started off as 4 members. We're probably around 15 to 16 members today. Um, And what we do is we work with tons of different historical sites in the area to help them raise money. So like it's all fundraising. 100% of the proceeds go directly to the location, and that helps them with historical preservation, restoration, and then educational programming, which is a huge thing. A lot of the sites that we work with, one of the sites that we work with brings in about 3,000 students a year. Another one brings in about 25,000 students a year. So it's really cool to be able to give back to the community in a very unique and weird way, but doing that, and helping folks out along in the way. So um, that's kind of where I spend a lot of time is Transcend. And then, we hit the road quite a bit. But then when I'm not doing that and we have the opportunity to, I am filming with the Ghost Finders. So I just joined them for season 11, and hopefully more to come. So long as I don't piss anybody off. Rob, love you. Um, but yeah, so it's been a blast, man. It's been really cool. We have gone to some very interesting locations. Some very very active locations. So it's really cool to experience that and do that with people that you consider your friends and family. So it's a fun place, fun times.
So you're doing paranormal work down in West Virginia, right?
Virginia.
Virginia.
I am in old Virginia. So I'm right outside of Richmond. And so we investigate mostly kind of around Central Virginia, but then every so often we'll head out different places. Like we'll go to Gettysburg coming up um, next month. Um, Last month we were out in West Virginia actually for Sweet Spring Sanatorium, and we've gone some other places, but mostly it's in Virginia is where we kind of stay and do what we need to.
Now, with your filming or just regular of places you went, what would you say best place you enjoyed that got to go back? Like,
um,
can you describe some of like your best experiences?
well, the one place that we filmed that like I had to go back, I've already been back to, and that's Sweet Spring Sanatorium. That place is absolutely wild. Like I can't say I've ever experienced anything quite like Sweet Springs. Um, it's an old sanatorium, not like insane asylum sanatorium. It was actually for tuberculosis. Before that, it was a Springs hotel, like a destination resort kind of deal. Um, then it became a tuberculosis clinic for a couple years. It became a geriatrics home for a few years, and then after that, turned into a center for like drug and alcohol rehabilitation. Um, so it's definitely got a lot of energy. It's massive. Um, and when we were there filming the first time, the paranormal kind of director there, her name is Cindy Harper. We get up there Friday. We're not filming Friday. It's just kind of get in there, get to the location, kind of make yourself a little bit familiar with it. Uh, and so I was like, well, shit, I'm gonna stay up and investigate all night. Like, why not? Like, I'm here. Um, so she told me like right before we left, she's like, by the way, once they get familiar with you, they will open and close doors upon request for you. And I'm like, no, like you're kidding me, right? She's like, no, like this will actually happen. And I was like, okay, sure, Cindy, whatever you say. Um, and so she left and went to bed, and we were probably in there for another hour or two, and we were up on the top floor. Some people denote it as the second, some people call it the third, but it was the top floor. And I remember asking, like, okay, if anybody's here. Cindy told me that once we've been here for a little while, somebody, they'll close the door for you if you ask. And so, sure enough, like maybe 30 seconds later, we actually heard the sound of a door slamming down the hallway. And we were on this one ward. It was the, I want to say it was the men's ward. And so we heard this door slam. And so we left the room that we were in, got into the hallway, and started walking towards that door. And as we're doing that, we're actually hearing like footsteps in the room, like up ahead on the right hand side. So I'm like, you know, pretty intrigued, also not trying to get stabbed by somebody who's like squatting there. So I'm like, hey, we're coming in, like we're just, just here, just, trying to do our thing. If there is anybody in there, totally okay. We're not gonna bother you. We just want to know if there's anybody there. At that point, the footsteps immediately stopped, and we stood there for a few seconds, and then I heard the sound of this thud, and it it was as if you picked up somebody, turned them horizontally, and dropped them on the floor from about 5 feet up in the air. Like it was a sickening thud, not like somebody dropped a brick or something. Like a full on body. And so so like at that point I run into the room, and of course there is not a single thing there. And we decide, okay, let's do like an EVP session. So break our recorders. We start investigating a little bit. We're getting nothing. And then, right as we cut off our recorders, we hear the sound of back where we were. Somebody is pulling on the doors to the ward. So like they're these big doors, and they have like the metal bars on them. And somebody's like shaking the hell out of it, like somebody's trying to get in. And so, of course, we run down there. There's nobody there. As soon as we pass through those doors, we hear somebody banging on one of the windows down the hall. Like legitimately somebody banging on a window. So of course we start heading down there. Nothing there. And as we get down to where this window is, it's actually it's called one of the sunrooms. And during this time with tuberculosis, one of the things that they had in mind to heal you was get as much exposure to sun as possible. And so they would get people out of their rooms, put them in wheelchairs or their beds, wheel them into this sunroom, and they would just leave them there all day. And so we're standing in there, and all of a sudden we hear footsteps, like somebody running above us. Aw, Ray. You're so weird. You make me blush. Such a weirdo, Ray. Uh, I'm watching chat too, by the way.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I know. I'm not sure if I can really show that comment, but
you got fans.
So then we hear like somebody running above us, and these are like heavy boots, and so we realize like we're on the top floor. The only thing above us is this tiny, dinky, like attic space. So we find our way up to the attic. God knows, I don't know how we managed to figure out how to get to the attic, um, because it was not like identified or anything. We just started checking rooms, and we found a way up. And of course, we get up there, and there's like nothing. Like there's no place to even walk. Like maybe at some point you could have walked up there, but at this point it was just completely covered in just stuff, and insulation. And so it was, I mean, at that point, it was like probably 3 or 4 in the morning. And we were like, all right, well, we got to go because we need to film. We need to start filming at like 8 a.m. in the morning. So we've got to at least get a couple of hours of sleep. But it was wild. And I knew like at that moment, like I wanted to come back and just spend some more time in that building. Um, and so we were partnered up with Cindy, and headed down there, I guess a couple weeks ago, and did a fundraising investigation. And it was, I mean, it was even crazier that time than the last. Um, that building is something wicked. It is crazy. It is definitely one of the most active locations I've ever been to. Um, just in sheer like experiences, hearing things, seeing things. And it's not like just you, it's like everybody that's there is with you is hearing all of these things and seeing all of these people walking around. And there's like, we're the only people there. It is out in the middle of nowhere. So it's cool, man. It's a cool spot. That's
That
where I
was
would go back.
that was when you guys featured it on Ghost Finders, or was that a different time?
Yeah, so the very first time I stepped in there was that Friday night, I guess a year and some change, maybe 2 years at this point. And that's when we were experiencing all this stuff is literally the first time ever stepping into the building. And so like unfortunately we decided to call it a night because we had to start filming at 8 a.m. the next day. And I'm like, I gotta not look dead. Cause like if I stayed up all night, I was just gonna look like butt. And so like I had to at least have some semblance of aliveness. So
Mm.
we called it and then went to bed, and then we're up within like 4 hours back in the building. It was wild. But that was the very first time I'd ever been there, and so I knew I was like, man, I gotta get back here. Like I would love to get back here, and so we had the opportunity to go back, and like I'm ready to go again. Like I could totally like camp out in that building for a month, easy. Just like live there for a while. It's such a cool place.
As
Now,
long as you guys have the essentials, I'm sure you could.
Oh yeah, I mean
Well,
I gotta like shower and stuff and internet, you know. I need to like have my hour of TikTok at night when I'm like lying in bed.
hour, really? Just an hour? You might be lying to
Yeah, just
yourself.
an hour.
Now, with your good experiences, I mean, you had to have a few horrible experiences, right? Where you just like never going back here again, that's for sure. Have you had any of like those?
um hmm personally, yes. Not in like a filming perspective. But there is a location here in Virginia that we went to. Um and it's a really cool place. There are other teams that investigate it even to this day. Hey, Christy, how's it going? Um, but we had an experience there that left two of my team members with some really negative things that went home with them. Um, like, I'm not going to say, I'm just going to say really negative things. And that is definitely a place that I'd probably go back to that location, but probably not to that particular building on the property. Um, just because for a very long time afterwards, I had this like urge to go back, even though I knew something really negative happened there. And my team members were having negative things happen to them at home, like being attacked at home, that sort of thing. Uh, had this strong urge and desire to go back. And that's like if you get that, that's typically not terribly normal. So I'd probably stay away from there. This was a place that we went and investigated, and it was right when that movie Mama came out way back in the day. You guys remember that with like the mom and the two kids, and the mom was trying to get the kids to go into the woods, and the mom was like dead and everything. You know what I'm talking about? So um, one of my teammates, we have two of my teammates that we like to scare the absolute hell out of when we can. Like that's just a fun bit. We got to do it. And so um myself and two of the other guys on the team, we were in this little house, and um we're going mama while we're investigating. Like we're just waiting, like let it get dead quiet. It's pitch black, and we're like mama. And so, like, just to try to scare her as much as possible. And so she eventually says, "Screw you guys, I'm leaving." So she goes out of the building, and it's just the three of us guys in there at that point. And so we decided to go into the basement because we hadn't been in the basement yet. And it was like it was as if somebody had like lived there, and then just the next day decided they were gone and they were leaving all of their junk behind. And so we're like crawling over stuff in the basement. We decided to go back up the steps onto the first floor, and as we're like walking up the steps, all three of us see this girl, like this young girl. She had jet black hair and a white dress on, and she like ran past the doorway to go up into the first floor. Went up into the kitchen. All three of us saw this little girl run through the building. And so we're like, What the hell?" So all three of us go upstairs. It's a small place, and consists of four rooms that each connect to each other, right? Like it's just a square. There's no way that this girl would have gotten out of there, first off, without us hearing or seeing her, and second of all, um, it's out in the middle of nowhere. I mean, like, she more than likely was not living there. So we're like searching around for this girl, don't get anything, can't find her or anything. What we do find, however, is when we go back and listen to our audio recordings, we actually have a young female say, "Mama?" Like literally, like, and we weren't even joking at that time because our team member, she had already left. She was already out of the building, and we were already like pretty like, what the heck was that? Like we all three of us saw this young girl. Um, so we leave the building for a little bit, and we go and investigate some of the other property. On our way back, walking through, like clear as day, we see these pair of red eyes in one of the windows on the second floor. And so I'm like biting at the bit to go back in. And that's a huge no-no, right? But I am like trying to like I'm like, all right, let's go, let's go, let's go. And of course they're like, nah, no, 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 we gotta go, we gotta leave now. Um, so we end up not going back in, probably better. Um, but then for weeks after that, two of my teammates were having, these dreams, including myself, of this little girl, and then this huge shadow figure. Lots of activity in our houses. At one point, one of my team members, his fiance at the time, was actually held underwater by something. Like she was taking a bath just to relax, and something went and held her in the tub. Um, so that's probably a place that I'd be like, maybe I'll pass on that one. Like it was cool, don't get me wrong, but just having that follow you back um, is not like a it's not like a fun thing, you know.
Yeah, probably not the most relaxing bath either.
No, no, I'm
That's
not a huge
like
fan of hitchhikers.
that's like everyone's worst fears when you go down in the bath is like getting held down.
Yep, and that's what happened. And so she was, I mean, she was pretty freaked out after that, like understandably. Um, and you know, he really took the brunt of it. And what happens with some of that stuff is it doesn't ever really go away. It'll kind of like, sometimes it will if you're lucky, but then sometimes every couple of years there's more activity. And so that's kind of what he has to go through is every few years he'll have something pop up kind of around the time that we went to this location um, for a week or 2 weeks or something, and then it'll die back down again. So it's really weird, but not a place I'd go back to. That'd be good.
Fair enough.
So,
JJ?
is there anything your team does specifically to protect yourself against that sort of thing?
Um, we kind of leave it up to the individual on our team. Some of our team prays, some have items that they carry along with them, some sage, some use whatever words or crystals or whatever that they want to use. But typically I kind of leave it up to whatever the individual wants. I mean, we've got a huge team. We've got like 15 or 16 members, and we span multiple like religions and belief systems, so we don't have like a set thing. Like we don't all huddle up and pray. You know what I mean? Like if some people want to pray, and that's their defense, and that's what helps them be protected entering into the location, that's what they do. Um, Others, make sure they have items or they ground themselves. Maybe they go and just clear their head, clear their space for a little bit before they enter a location. We do make sure everybody's in a good like state of mind. Like you don't want to go and investigate if you are really feeling depressed or negative, anxiety, those sorts of things. We don't want anybody that's going in with the wrong state of mind, because then you are like a walking bullseye. Like you are just a target. It's like it's you know not a good idea to do that. So we try to make sure everybody's in a good headspace, and ready for whatever could come our way. But I kind of leave it up to the team what each individual wants to do, to prep, and then afterwards, cleanse themselves. Whether it's, like I said, grounding. For me, mine is I like to take a shower afterwards. Like that helps me kind of like clean off from that location, helps me disconnect, and keeping everything that's I don't know what that is. Keeping everybody that's you know hopefully trying to or hoping to come home and be my new roommates, to not be my new roommates. So because they're not going to pay the rent. So
Yeah.
So I don't think you directly mentioned this, but what was your initial experience that got you into the paranormal?
yeah, so um my first experience with the paranormal was when I was young. Um, my dad had a job opportunity, for a company called. Oh wait, Christy, Steve Merlin says you have an invisible bulldozer attachment that parts the ghosts as you walk through home. Yeah, she's told me that before. um, so my dad had a job opportunity at a company called Pfizer, for head of R&D in Richmond, and so um, we moved very quickly. I was raised up in Pennsylvania, so we moved down to Virginia kind of on a whirlwind. Um, and I was pretty young and um, hated the idea. Like my entire family was here, my friends were here, everything that I knew and I loved was in Pennsylvania, not in Virginia. So when we moved into this brand new house. Nobody had lived in it before. You know, it had just completed build, um, and it was first off, it was a super weird house. Like the layout was the oddest thing I've ever seen. Um, but second of all, I was pretty depressed, lots of anxiety, especially around making new friends and being in a new essentially world. Um, Lots of stress and just was not in a good headspace, like was definitely hating it. And so when we moved into this house, I immediately got sick, and I was sick for probably 4 months, 5 months. um, and during that time I was having activity kind of like pick up and kind of keep building. It started with, hearing whispers and talking at night, when I was trying to sleep. That turned into our downstairs piano playing by itself at night. My name being called out to me in the middle of the night, like both being whispered and screamed in my ear. I would have the doors to my closet and bedroom both open and close, on their own. Um, and I mean, it was crazy. Like, you know, nobody else really had. Now there was other things that were going on in this house, but nobody had like this particular thing going on, other than myself. And it was like kind of like targeted. It seems like, um, I would see doppelgangers, mostly of our family dog. So I would be outside playing in the front yard, and I would see our dog walk into the front yard. And we're in a neighborhood. It was a pretty big one, so there was a lot of traffic. And I'd be like, "You're not supposed to be out here. Let's get you inside." So I'd yell at him. I'd be like, "Go inside." And so I remember like watching him go into the garage to go into the house, and I decided to just follow up and make sure that he got in and that the door was open so that he could get into the house. And I went in, and he was nowhere to be found. So uh, I made my way into the living room, and the dog was sitting there laying on my mom's lap. And I was like, that's interesting. He got there pretty fast. And she's like, he's been sitting here sleeping on my lap all afternoon. And so I would have that like pretty consistent outside of the house and inside of the house, and it almost seemed to really mostly be like the pets, like the dog. Um, And so that kind of just continued to escalate. Like it just got worse and worse and worse and worse to the point that I wouldn't sleep in my own bedroom. I would sleep in this tiny little guest room next to my parents' bedroom because it was a lot closer and there was less hallway to run when you're freaked out in the middle of the night. Um, and it was just wild. And I bring up that it's a new build because a lot of people think that like, oh, it's got to be an old building to have some activity. It was fresh. It was clean. Now it did sit on some land that wasn't necessarily battlefield, but we do know that there was a lot of Civil War movement during in that area. Um, so, you know, I don't think that activity has to stem from a building, but maybe the grounds itself.
Mm.
And whatever was there just found me as like the world's easiest bait, and just decided to go to town and have fun. Um, we lived in that house for 2 years, and finally, after 2 years, we moved into a new home, and that's when the activity ceased. And so that's kind of what got me into it, and like wanting to help people, and help other folks not feel like they were deathly afraid to go home. Like I'd get off the bus and I would not want to go into my house. Like most kids are like, "Man, screw school. I want to get home." I was like, "No, I'm good. I'm good here. I'll stay here at school. I don't want to go home."
Mm.
Um because I did not want to be in that house. Like I did not want to be in that house. So I was super relieved when we finally moved. Um and that's what kind of got me into it, like the whole idea of being able to use my battle scars and my experiences to help other people so that they too aren't deathly afraid of a place that's supposed to be like a safe haven from the world, right? Like your home is supposed to be like your chill, your safe spot, and totally was not. So kind
Mm.
of propelled me into the paranormal and trying to help other people, um and kind of led me down the path that I'm on today.
So how did you get involved? Well, how did you become part of the Ghost Finders after you had been working with Transcend Paranormal?
So, one of the things that my team does is, and Christy, who's actually on the call, we, like I said earlier, kind of work to help historic locations fundraise. And one of the places that we have done that with is a church called Fleetwood Church. It's in Brandy Station, Virginia. It's a super, super amazing, kind of like a commoners church, like not anywhere that like this massive churches. It's literally a commoners church. This is what everyday people would have gone and attended. And so I had known about this building for a while, investigated some places very nearby, but never actually got to go into this church. Finally, at some point, somebody bought it that he decided he needed to restore it. He wanted to restore it because it was falling down. It was looking like the building behind you, JD. And so he was like, let's restore this place. And so I met Christy at a convention, EnigmaCons at St. Albans Sanatorium, and she started talking about Brandy Station, and I'm like, oh my god, like I have been there, and I said, there's always this one place that I've always wanted to go, and it's this church, and she's like, funny you should mention that, and she had met up with the new owner, Steve Paulette, and was talking to him about doing paranormal events to fundraise for his restoration work. And so Christy and I started talking, and her husband Donnie, and we're like, you know what? Let's do something like really big. Like, let's have our own convention. So we started kind of formulating this plan, and started reaching out to some of our friends about being special guests and speakers, and panelists and all these sorts of things. And one of the people that we reached out to was Megan Deputy. And
Mm.
so, Megan was going to talk about, herself as an eclectic witch, and kind of her time on the Ghost Finders. And so, as the date kind of crept closer and closer and closer, she's like, "Hey, Dan wants to come too. Is that okay?" And I was like, "Oh yeah, of course, Dan can come." And then she's like, "Oh hey, Rob wants to come too." And so, like all of a sudden, I had the whole cast, minus Melody. She was not able to make it, but had the whole cast that like literally wanted to come. And so I was like, hell yeah, like this is great. Like, this is going to be super cool to have these folks down here helping and supporting the Paracon. And so the first time I met them was at this big convention, and we just got to talking and really hit it off. And so, oh, there's my mom. Hi, mom. Aw. Uh, and so, we hit it off, and um, I guess a couple months later, I got a phone call, and he's like, "Hey," Rob's like, "Hey, uh, we're gonna be filming at Sweet Springs in West Virginia. Um, do you want to come?" And I was like, "Yeah, sure." I'm like, like, what am I gonna do? Like, do you need me to like grill? Do you need me to like hold cameras? Do you need me to hold lights? Like, what do you need me to do, man? And he's like, "No, you're gonna be on camera." And I was like, "Oh God, like this is scary." Uh, you know, um, because it's so weird. It is very interesting being in front of a camera. Like until you've done it, it's just like it's odd. You know what I mean? Like it's hard to completely just not pay attention to the fact that somebody has a massive camera and lighting rig and
Mm.
everything, and you've got to pretend they're not there. So that was quite a challenge. But yeah, so that was kind of like my first opportunity with Ghost Finders, and I had a blast, man. Like it was so much fun. And Rob asked me to come to the next one, and I've just been going ever since. So we've done Sweet Springs, we did the Peter Oliver House, we did another location that I can't share quite yet.
I was
And
gonna say,
then
weren't you guys? Well, Rob was promoting a new one coming out here soon.
yes,
I seen he posted about it last night.
yes. So that one I can talk about a little bit. That is Henricus Historical Park, and that is somewhere that actually is in my backyard and kind of like one of our home locations, if you will, like one of those places that we just, as a team, you kind of get to that spot, that location that you just kind of it's close by, and if you get a good working relationship, you get to go back and continue to investigate and continue to research and get to be part of that location. And so
Mm.
Henricus is that location to me. Like, I spent a lot of time down there. I was there yesterday, and so I talked to Rob and was able to bring the team down to Henricus. So I kind of got to show them like my own home, my backyard, this location that I was like super familiar with and
Mm.
I absolutely love. So that should be coming out, I think he said next week. So I'm pretty excited about
Cool.
that. That was a lot of fun. And it's a really cool location. It's the second English settlement in America. So it dates back to 1611, which is really cool.
Mm.
Um, so it's a cool place. But yeah, so that's kind of how I got started with the Ghost Finders, and it's been a lot of fun. I've really had a lot of um, I guess enjoyment and it's been a great experience, and I've kind of found family. You know what I mean? Like you work with these folks, and you have to be able to depend upon them, and put a lot of trust and faith into them. And it's nice that it's kind of reciprocated. Um, oh, there's my uncle. Well, guys, it's like a family affair in here, guys. Uh, so so yeah, so it's been cool. And we've got another location lined up, and I'm excited. Like you kind of get to that point where you film, and then you have to wait a month or two or so sometimes before you can film again, and you're just like, come on, like let's go see where we're gonna explore next.
Are you guys
So,
currently working on season 11 though?
hmm
Okay.
yeah, I think we've got a few more that we're gonna have and release for season 11 before it goes to 12. I think that's a Rob question and a Heather question.
Seems like everybody's just about at that point for the Paraflix and that type of streaming platform is they're currently working on the season and putting it out like a short amount of time after
hmm
filming.
Yeah. I think I don't know how many episodes he's planning for the season, um, but I do know like you know Henrikes will be part of the season. The location that we just filmed at recently is going to be part of the season, um, and I think there's maybe one or two more. I'm not entirely sure. Um, he likes to kind of like surprise us with locations because they're massive, and like it's kind of like that thing where it's like, okay, I'm going to tell you kind of whereabouts where we're going, but he doesn't want to spill the beans too much. Being
Mm.
the historian, I kind of get to know a little bit more. I'm privy to a little bit more because I get to go and research, which is a lot of fun. Like I love digging into the stories and the history of a location, especially like the people that were there is so much fun. And then when I get the opportunity to, I get to reach out and like interview folks from the community there. Like if there's a historical board that's nearby or a historical society, um, that sort of thing. And that's like always super cool because you get to hear these stories that other people, if they just walk into the building, they're not going to hear about these stories and these people and the trials and tribulations that they had at some of these locations. So it's really cool when you get on site to be able to interact with the community around you, um, and see what they have to share about like a place that was very pivotal to them, and how they feel about it, and what energy you're gonna kind of pick up when you get in there.
So, how do you go about doing the historical part of it? Like, how do you usually go into that process?
Um, Phone calls and emails. I try not to cold call or like walk down the street and I'm like, hey, tell me about this. Like, but a lot of what I'll do is once I find out like where we're going, I will reach out. Almost every town has a historical society of some sort.
Mm.
Um, and so that's like the first thing I look for is like, let me find a historical society, um, because they're gonna have like the most information. Out of anybody in the area, the historical society is going to know something a little, probably a little bit more than the average bear. Um, I'll also dive into old newspaper articles. Those are really really good sources. Um, so I've grabbed subscriptions to different like newspaper, like historic newspaper repositories online, so that I could just literally find the local newspaper, and just look up key things if I can find in that newspaper something about specifically about the location, or maybe oh Richard call me the pear dictator, thanks so much buddy, but finding things that are very particular or specific to that location or the people that are involved there, or maybe just like the town in general. Like there are some towns that were specifically built because of mining and the mining operations that went on there, and so like you've got to know the background of the people that were there and what kind of um, place they were mentally and emotionally, right? Like a mining town, these guys are going to be working nonstop. There's a lot of death, and it almost becomes commonplace for these things to happen. A lot of these some of these old mines, it's like it's not if you're going to get hurt, it's when you're going to get hurt, and so
Mm.
having that understanding of where you're going to go into these locations, these buildings, you can kind of get a good idea, like mindset wise, how it would have been living here, or working here or visiting here. Um, so I try to use like newspaper clippings and articles. Definitely like first, reaching out and working with the historical society. And then the nice thing is a lot of times the owners of these locations, um, have done a lot of the legwork for you. And so it's really
Mm.
great when they can say, "Oh yeah, I've got a whole stack of documentation. Do you want me to send it over?" And of course, I'll be like, "Yes." And so I will sit here late at night until like 2 or 3 in the morning reading just history of some of these locations and towns and places. Um,
Mm.
and my big thing is trying to use the history to understand and build context around the hauntings of a location. So like okay, well, we saw a ghost and it just walked through a wall, and you're like, well, they probably didn't do that when they were alive, so why is that? And then you can go back and find like insurance records where it says like there was a door there and the upstairs was completely remodeled, and so you can kind of build a better idea around what's going on there, and why it's going on there versus just like, oh, something spooky happened, how cool is that? Um, so so that's a big thing for me is just utilizing that history as part of the investigation, process, and then also to validate some of like if you get an EVP of a name. Okay, well now let's see if we can walk that backwards and find if that name, that person historically was here. And that's really cool when you can like actually identify like, okay, we got an EVP of a name, and we can confirm this person was here 100%. That stuff is always really fun. I love being able to do that.
Okay, I have a question.
Okay.
It's kind of stupid, but
I was muted. I was about to ask a question and realized I was muted, but go.
Oh, yours is probably better, Paul.
No, I believe in you.
I was just gonna ask what your favorite snack is when you investigate.
Oh my god. Okay. Let's see. If I'm being healthy, it's like almonds, right? Um, Typically I'm not, and so like one of my team members brings these sausage balls, like, and they're like crack, man. Like they're so good. So we'll eat those, and then I'm a huge like Fritos and Cheetos fan. Like the thin, not the puffy Cheetos, not the Cheetos that get all in your teeth and everything. Like the dehydrated ones that are like kind of crunchy. Um,
Those are
so
the best.
yeah, so like I will like overeat on all of that stuff. And then like if anybody brings anything else, like sometimes people bring just random food, and man, it's like fair game. If you bring an energy drink, if you're bringing energy drinks and snacks, man, like expect all of it to be gone.
Lost me at sausage balls.
Dude, they're good, bro.
Sounds good.
They're good. She puts like cheese in them. Shout
Oh.
out to Rhonda. Dude, yeah, it's good. They're
Now,
they're always gone no matter what.
looks like I gotta go find a recipe.
Now you're
and do
hungry.
this. Yeah, now I'm hungry. Now we gotta end this early so I can
Mhm.
eat. So my question was, now seeing how you have a show and it's recorded and it's for people to see, do you find anytime like the stuff you investigate or like the footage you have on there, like almost like misrepresents it for like more pushing it for entertainment purposes more than actual real footage, or do you feel like the content is because
Like
Jared,
legitimate. Yes.
like legitimately 100%, and
So the nice thing, at least that I mean, for me, I'm really big on like it has to be legitimate. Like I I am in this for like research and helping people, and not like I want more likes and more followers. Like I don't care. I mean that's great, don't get me wrong, but like I don't want to put myself out there on some project that is going to be misrepresenting the paranormal or the research, or just making junk up for the sake of um, getting followers, right? The nice thing about the Ghost Finders is all of the editing is done by Rob and Heather. And so Rob is kind of like the lead of the team, right? And um, Heather is his partner, and like all of us are there for the entire investigation. Sometimes I'm doing camera work, sometimes I'm in front of the camera. Heather is almost always doing camera work, so she is on her feet like 25 hours a day. Oh, thank you, Christy. Um, but yeah, the nice thing about having it on something like Paraflix is the Ghost Finders retains its own editing, right? Like it's not something where we go and film like if you're on Discovery, or like any where they're pretty much mailing out all of their equipment, all of the cameras, all the devices. You use it, you film, you package it all back up, and you send it to HQ, and then they will cut and edit it. Um, I have friends that are on Ghost Hunters, for example, and that's what happens. And so like their experiences on site are 100% legitimate, but when it comes to like the editing process, they don't really have as much say or pull, or kind of their hat in the game on that, because it's all this big company, right? And let's face it, that's entertainment, right? Like if you're not getting views, you're not on TV. Um, Ghost Finders is really cool because everything is done in house. Like everything is done by Rob and Heather. Um, you know, I do some filming. Other people do filming and all that sort of stuff, but like it's all edited and produced like in house essentially, right? Like they retain the ability to add and remove and do whatever. Um, but I will say, in all of the times that I've been filming with them, I have never once had it where like something was edited or added or changed to like be out of context. Like you hear a scream and you're like, "Oh my gosh, that's crazy. What is it?" And it's like, "Oh no, it was just one of our teammates scared of a bat." Like it's not like edited so that it's BS. Like the nice thing is it is legit. I can't say that for everybody because I haven't worked with everybody. But I will say, just from the Ghost Finder's perspective, it's nice because I don't have to worry about that. And I don't have to worry about somebody else trying to take it and turn it into something that it's not, and misrepresenting like the experiences and the investigation. Um, it's all kind of handled inside and internally, which again is really nice to not have to worry about. Like I've
Yeah,
seen some things where it's just like completely flipped sideways. I've seen some locations super misrepresented, and it's like, oh, there's demons here, there's demons there, and I'm like, that's weird because I've spent multiple weekends at these locations overnight, staying for like 3 days in a row, and I've had no demons. I'm not being attacked in the middle of the night, and pulled out of my bed, and like that's literally what you're telling people that's going on at these locations, and I'm like, that is a huge disservice to the people that run these places, because like it's not true. You know what I mean? And it's hurting them.
that's why I ask, because I know like some people like are really dedicated to what they do, and then they get people where at the end of the day, the people who edit the stuff is trying to put out entertainment for people to watch. But
Hmm.
that's interesting to know that the people who edit are the ones who are actually right then and there.
I mean, yeah, they're in control, man. They're playing God on that show, that episode, right? Like they can do whatever. Um, and it's rough when like you have to send all your stuff away, and it's to people that you don't know who's editing it, and of course it's for views, right? Like if your show is not entertaining, then you probably won't be around. um, but it's nice because Paraflix has offered us kind of a platform where we can show like actual investigation. You know what I mean? Like actual footage. It's not like this like over the top Hollywood kind of thing. It's actual investigation, like just us investigating and doing what we do, and then being able to showcase it, which is really nice. And I feel like that's much more, to me, much more interesting and entertaining,
Yeah.
um, because I get to see other people's style of investigating, and some of the ways and different techniques and different skill sets that they have, and I can use that to build on to my own.
Shout out to them, I guess.
Yeah. Oh,
Yeah.
cool.
Any other never mind. I was about to say
So,
something and
You're just
got so
hungry
much.
now. You're just
Yeah,
hungry.
Steve,
that was my fault.
what is the historical society that you work with in
S-
Virginia?
Yeah, so I am the current seated president for a place called the Hanover Tavern. And the Hanover Tavern is one of the oldest operating taverns in America. It dates back to geez, 1730s. I want to say somewhere between 1733 and 1735. There was a license to operate a tavern where the building today sits. That building stood and operated as a tavern for just shy of 100 years, and then they decided to build a new building. And so the historical, the preservation society, the Hanover Tavern Foundation that I am a part of, um, we support and preserve, and utilize the building as like an educational center, and that dates back to 1791, which is considered the new tavern. So we have a building. We have really it's two buildings that were kind of Frankensteined into one. They actually had the home portion of the building, which was built in 1791. The second tavern, which was built in 1821, and then in 1831 they connected the two buildings. And so um, I basically work. I mean, it's a nonprofit, um, so I volunteer my time to do what I can to help with the preservation, the restoration, tons of fundraising, tons of events, um, and you know, try to keep that um, not only that building afloat, but also a center of community for the county around us, right? All the people around us. Um, One of the big things that we do every year is we have field trips, and we have upwards of 3,000 students come in every year for SOL studying, and that's like standards of learning in Virginia. So you have to pass these big tests, um, and so we bring these kids in, and we do like um, you know basically a living museum, right? Like living history. You've got live interpreters that are teaching and educating the kids. And so not only do we do that, we also have a theater in the building. We have a full restaurant and bar in the building. We've got a museum, and we also utilize it as a place for folks to get married and have like you know parties and all that sort of stuff. So it's a lot of fun. It's a lot of work. Um, it's a really really cool location. There's a good chunk of activity, and we get to investigate it all the time. Um, but it keeps you busy. It
Yeah.
keeps you busy, especially when like an old building things were always breaking, and so you never know like what's just going to stop working at a moment's notice. Then you've got to drop everything and get up there before something happens. So
So the building looks like how it was back in the day, like
mhm.
back
Yeah,
the
the
second way or the second design.
so we do everything that we can to keep the building kind of preserved to the original function, and the original look of the building. Obviously, it's not like the original because they added they added the centerpiece that attached both of the buildings together. So originally, it would have been two separate standing structures. Um, but after 1831, all of the flooring in there minus one floor is the original wood flooring. We've got original beams all throughout. Really, the skeleton of the building is entirely original. A lot of the outdoor features, a lot of the indoor features, and then some of it we've been able to remove some of the newly built things because we didn't get the building until about 1990. That's when the foundation purchased it, and so before that there were a number of different owners, and they did different remodels and all that sort of stuff to the building. So we've tried to kind of step some of that back, if you will. um, but it's been it's good. It's a really cool location. It's a lot of fun. I love being part of a tavern. Like it just sounds cool, right? And so we have a really really great staff that work there, and support the location. And then my team does a lot up there too. We do a lot of fundraising. Like we've had our first paranormal conference there. We've had investigations, the whole nine yards. So they make a great burger. They do make good burgers. We make really good burgers. I like some
Oh
serious
boy.
cheeseburgers, bro.
But what do you mean by a paranormal conference? That you mean the convention?
Yeah. We had a Paracon up there in January of this year, and that was the very first one. We actually were going to do it 2 years ago, but something called COVID kind of stopped that. So we had to put it on hold, and so um, this past January we had our first convention. It was awesome. It was a lot of fun. We had the Ghost Finders there, obviously, because I was like, you guys better come down here for this. Um, so I was able to drag them down. We had a bunch of other speakers, some really really cool folks that came and were part of it. Christy and Donnie and them, they were all part of it. A whole team. I mean, we had a lot of people. Man, it was a really fun day. Um, it was tiring. We kind of shot ourselves in the foot We decided we were going to do an investigation Friday night, and then the convention starting. We had to be up there at 8 a.m. on Saturday, and then we had a investigation Saturday night. So we were at the building on Friday from like 4 p.m. until 3 a.m. in the morning, and then we had to be up there again at 8 a.m. to allow in like vendor setup, and then we were there until about 4 a.m. that, I guess, Sunday. Uh, so that was like it's gonna be so much fun. This was horrible. So like we definitely had some learning opportunities and some changes coming for next year. But it was a lot of fun, man. It's always cool to get so many, all those folks together, and people kind of understanding the goal, right? To like um, make sure a lot of these historical places are still standing so that we can investigate them, and learn from them, and the
Mm,
community around us can learn from them. Because if not, then we're investigating fields. So, and that's not as fun. And there's no AC
yeah.
in fields either.
Hmm.
Now, with investigation, the paranormal, this is a question that everyone usually tends to have a different answer to, and it would be, how could you define what paranormal is, and like, do you believe it more as like you could absolutely prove it with science, or do you have more spiritual? Like,
Um,
how does a paranormal thing happen? Like,
it's a very loaded question, and I was part of a podcast for 2 hours discussing this. So we could be here all day. Um, Uh, in short, I don't know. And that's, I feel like, the
that's fair.
exciting thing about it. It's kind of like one of those, Final Frontier bits, like where you're like, we haven't explored space and we've only explored a certain part of the ocean. And there's all these things appearing and disappearing around us and objects moving and stuff. Like maybe we should check that out too while we're at it. Um, and it's also a lot cheaper to investigate the paranormal than space. Um, just rockets and such. But um, I don't know. I don't know, and I love that. Like I feel like there's too many people that kind of have these preconceived notions around what um the paranormal is. And I feel like as humans, we are very, very biased to and selfish to ourselves, right? Like we're like, oh yeah, we're the most intelligent species. Like, okay, that's great. Like we're pretty intelligent. That's cool. Um, but that doesn't necessarily mean that like we're the only thing that maybe have ghosts, right? Like what gives us the right to only be the only thing that have spirits or souls or become ghosts when we die, you know what I mean, like etc. So I always love the notion that you know paranormal activity are dead folks doing things, which is interesting, but I don't necessarily think that's always the case. um, I think that as we kind of dive more into science, um, we're finding things that, I mean, still yet to be proven, like string theory, which is really cool and one of my favorites. That we could have somewhere of upwards of 21 dimensions. Um, and what does that mean for the world around us? We already have proven quantum mechanics and quantum physics, right? Objects being in two places at the same time. We know that that is an actual thing. There's a computer built that uses quantum mechanics um, to actually compute. So um, we know that things can take up two places at the same time. Um, what does that mean? Like, does that mean that you can have objects, maybe if let's say we have a multiverse, right, and there's an infinite amount of universes around us, does that necessarily mean that ghosts are dead folks, or maybe just we kind of get a window, a brief peek into another universe that uh, is operating 10 years ago, 20 years ago, 100 years ago, and they just haven't quite caught up, right? Like they just started their stuff just a little bit ago. I mean, one of my favorite examples of this is a buddy of mine. One of my team members was up at St. Albans Sanatorium, and he was walking through the halls and he looks down this stairwell. And as he's looking down the stairwell and he shines his flashlight down there, he sees this man walking up the stairwell, and he was wearing this pig mask on, kind of like Saw. You know, if you saw the first Saw movie, you saw like the pig mask and everything. So he looks down and he sees this man wearing this mask. And of course, my buddy Alan is surprised to see, like he's privately rented this location out. It's St. Albans Sanatorium. There's nobody else in there except for him and his team. And there's sure as hell nobody walking around with a pig mask on. He sees this man, and Alan gets startled. And he also realizes that the guy wearing the pig mask is also looking Alan dead in the eyes and is just as startled. And so he's walking, this guy in this mask is walking up the steps. He gets scared because he sees that Alan is real, like sees him, and he turns around, and as he turns to start running back down the stairs, he like disappears into a mist. Um, and to me, when we think of like spirits and ghosts, where it's like, oh, they're these omnipotent things that, they can see us and hear us and all that sort of stuff. Maybe some can, maybe, but like, why was Alan just as startled as whatever this thing was? That it was startled that Alan could see it, and Alan is startled that he could see whatever this thing or person was. Um, so I don't know. I think it could be a whole slew of different reasons, and that's something that I'm really excited about, in investigating. Um, I I I like to put faith in both kind of metaphysical and scientific, camps, right? I think there's more than one way to skin a cat. And so I don't think until we have a solid understanding of what's going on, I don't think it's appropriate to just rule one out completely. Um, for me, I love the science behind it. So I'm doing like data logging. I'm looking at like Geiger counters and any environmental data. And I love that because I like one of the interesting things that, one of the teams that I'm working, like I've worked with in the past, CPRI, as well as, we've been seeing recently, we're seeing spikes in environmental, like, barometric pressure and in ionizing radiation immediately before, during, or immediately after, preternatural phenomena, whether it's recording an AVP, an EVP, hearing something, seeing something. Um, there is a spike in the environment, that thing occurs, and then the spike dissipates. Um, so that to me is really interesting. Like, I mean, all of it is, but I tend to like the science and look at the science, behind it and the history behind a lot of these locations. Um, but I think there's if anybody says there is just one way to do this, I can't imagine that they're correct quite yet because there is no solid, like, this is it. This is it, everybody. We're done. Everybody can go home now. We haven't gotten there yet. Um, so I like the unknown. I enjoy not knowing what it is. I feel like the adventure is where the excitement is, personally.
Yeah. Like you said, maybe it's just better not to know. The excitement is just not knowing.
Maybe it's the friends we make along the way. No, like, it
It's
was.
the, it's the journey.
And you've been watching the Hallmark Channel. Uh,
Oh, yeah, my mother watches that a lot. Year round, Christmas Hallmark.
the Christmas Hallmark Channel, man. God, I hate it. We need
Me
a Halloween
too.
Hallmark Channel is what we need. Just
Christy
24/7
chimed
Halloween.
into your conversation there.
Yeah, like that sort of thing is really like interesting. If humans experience time as a vector, right? Like we have three dimensions in one vector. That's how we experience existence right now, right? Um, we've got the XYZ planes, right? Like all of us have height and width and depth. And then we also measure that in time because in 5 minutes I will be sitting here. In 10 minutes I will not be sitting here. I'll be somewhere else. So we experience time as a vector, meaning it's only moving forward for us. That doesn't necessarily mean that time is a vector for everybody, and for everything. Maybe there is something that has like an extra dimensional awareness, and the cool thing is it is impossible for us to understand that because we are three dimensional creatures. Um, But it's interesting to think that if you are on a higher dimension, maybe time doesn't necessarily have to be a vector. Maybe you could look at time almost like um, the same way that you can drive up and down a street, right? You can move up and down a street either way, and we can do that. We can see where the end of the street is, and we can approach it and go past it. Um, for time, it's like going down a one-way street, right? Like that's how we experience our existence is we're going down a one-way street. We can't really stop, we can't reverse. We just go until the road ends and then we're done. But maybe there is something else that is able to say, "Oh no, that's you can actually back up. You could back up, and here's how you back up." Um, I don't know. It's fun things to think about at night when you want existential crises, and you really don't want to go to bed. You know, like what is the universe expanding into?
Yeah,
W-
that's
We're
I heard that one.
expanding. We're expanding, and we're expanding at an exponential rate. We're speeding up. What are we going into? It's scary. JD's disappearing too. He's disappearing into his background. He looks like a ghost himself. Uh, but yeah, it's stuff like that. That's what keeps you up. Like yeah, like what Christy says. That's what you do at like 3 a.m. in the morning when you're like you can't sleep.
And then
Been
you wake
there.
up the next day.
You just have mental breakdowns about things you have no idea and can't control anything about. It's great. It's a lot of fun.
So yeah, that that's good.
It's good.
Yeah,
It's
that
good.
yeah,
Breaking down in the middle of the night. It's great. It's great,
yeah,
man. I love it. You know what? I love doing that's what I do. I
Shoot.
try to do it every night. At least once a night. I'm like, man, oh my god, what are we doing?
it's a lot to think about.
It is. It's silly. It's silly amount of things to think about and consider. But it's fun. That's the cool thing about it is I feel like there's no not yet at least there's no like quite wrong answer. I've heard some really weird things and really way out there things that I can't say I quite pertain to, but I love the idea that the paranormal is kind of like this unknown frontier and it's all about exploring and investigating and researching and seeing how you can put the puzzle together to make it make sense.
Yeah, that's why it's like that's like my favorite question to ask. Everyone always has a different answer to it, and sometimes it's absolutely different than other people's, and sometimes people have the same conclusion.
Yeah.
But yeah,
Like I know exactly what it is. Like I'm sure you do.
yeah,
I don't know.
but
I'll find out one day, that's for sure.
yeah,
Maybe.
I might find out in 90 years.
Or tomorrow, you never know, Paul.
Nah, I don't do that.
Oh God. You might want to watch out. That sounds like she's coming for you, Paul.
That's a threat.
Might be tomorrow, Paul.
Honestly, sounds more like a promise.
Taking up too much space on the Minecraft server.
Shoot.
Oh my goodness. Cool.
All right, I guess that's everything. I that was a lot. I got everything I wanted to
I
ask.
know. I need a nap now.
Nap. Well, it is 9 o'clock. You should just go straight to bed.
Yeah. So JD,
Maybe I will, Steve.
Bella, you got the document right? Do you want to do the outro?
Oh, yeah.
actually,
Okay.
before we
Oh, never mind.
let you
One
go,
more question.
yeah, before not more question, but I mean, since we have you here for people watching, where can they find you? Like, is there a
Yeah.
place they could find you more and look at where you...
Central Virginia. That's where you can find me. Probably at the tavern. That's where you can look at me. No. So I do spend a lot of time at the tavern. So if you were trying to hunt me down, that's where you'd find me. However, you can find us on Facebook, Transcend Paranormal, and the Ghost Finders. For the Ghost Finders, all of our content is on Paraflix. So I highly recommend checking it out. There is a lot of other really cool content creators on there as well. And kind of like what I was saying with the Ghost Finders, all of them also are allowed and have the ability to edit their own content. So I kind of take a little bit more credibility towards that. Not saying like not no dig at the big TV shows. I do watch them because I find they're really interesting. But I do like on Paraflix that everybody can edit their own stuff. But yeah, so you'll find me there, and transcendparanormal.com. We're on all of the Instagrams and Twitters and all those sorts of things. For Transcend, we do have a huge list of events coming up. So if you do want to come hang out with me and investigate with me, and be weird along with me in the middle of the night in the dark, please come hang out. It's gonna be a lot of fun, and 100% of the proceeds when we host investigations go directly to the locations, or to like nonprofit organizations that help people, and families, and we have fun. So if you want somebody weird to hang out with you that has horrible puns, and likes to make jokes out of everything, come hang out with us. It'll be fun. Thank you, and thank you guys for allowing me to come on and bore you guys for a little bit. It's been fun. I
No,
enjoyed it.
that's always it's an honor.
Aw, you make me blush.
Yes, Steve. We liked you.
Yeah.
Liked past tense. I like that. I like that it's past tense. I appreciate
We'll
that,
eat you
Noah.
last. Anytime.
right.
Alrighty. So thanks everyone for joining us and watching the podcast. You will be able to listen to the episodes of the podcast on Spotify at the end of the following week. This episode will be better to watch in video format due to the video trailers. Also, make sure to follow the club on Instagram, Facebook, and our new TikTok account to keep up with the podcast and all of our events. If you are an Alfred State student and want to join the club, head over to Pioneerlink and join our organization. Stay tuned for the next episode and have a great summer.